And streaming.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am here in Queens, New York City, and we have a little cross-coastal trip with Shahid Buttar. You're running in Congress against Speaker Pelosi. She hasn't had a real threat, I'd say, congressionally for 30 years. Obviously, much of her national profile right now is involved with impeachment, so there hasn't been that much national coverage that she's got a challenger. So first for the audience, you're a constitutional attorney. You've been a longtime activist on the front lines in San Francisco, which I'm sure if you're watching from San Francisco or just in a gentrified city, you will know San Francisco is much different than it was 20 years ago.
Yes.
And Speaker Pelosi has kind of been the representative as the gentrification has gone on. So for people who don't know you or your background, what kind of prompted you to take on the most powerful Democrat in the country?
I'm a longtime advocate for communities on a whole range of issues, and frankly, I just got tired of waiting for my elected congressional representative to show up for the interests that I as a San Franciscan care about. 15 years ago, I was part of a mass movement around the world, frankly, marching in the streets to try to stop an invasion that she chose to support and to fund. And in the years since, I've seen her sweep CIA torture under the rug, support Obama's deportations, support Trump's foreign policy, fund his concentration camps, impose conservative spending austerity rules on a House, delay on impeachment, and then show up with a limited inquiry that I think is designed to fail. And I'm basically tired of waiting for corporate Democrats to show up for work, and that's why I chose to challenge Pelosi and give my city a more sincere, faithful representation of our visionary values in Congress.
And the nitty-gritty, you actually, this is your second time running, you kind of just like somewhat last minute, 3 months before the primary, 2 years ago, 2018, you decided to run, and you almost made the runoff, actually. In California, it's the top two candidates in the primary.
Right.
So you did pretty well for announcing 3 months before a primary.
Yeah.
So you're running this time, I don't want to compare it too much to the Ocasio-Cortez race, but you have a powerful Democrat who's probably not taking a primary challenger that seriously.
Right.
Can you kind of give people a lens of how you've seen San Francisco change?
Yeah.
Because you have obviously Silicon Valley, just a damaging machete it's taken to native San Franciscans.
Yes.
That people in Seattle and Chicago, Seattle, Los Angeles, other West Coast areas know. I mean, you can't live in San Francisco right now, and it would be hard to live in San Francisco, even if with a good salary.
Yeah. Housing insecurity is a problem that plagues many generations of people, and it's not confined to San Francisco, though we do have a particularly pernicious experience with it. And frankly, the cause of our urban housing crisis around the country has a federal root, and the Speaker of the House, unfortunately, has been entirely complicit in the erosion of federal spending on affordable housing. And I see in San Francisco just one example of a problem that is much more widespread. The idea of establishing a right to housing, investing in public housing, ensuring that people who face eviction, like they do here in New York and in San Francisco, have a right to civil representation funded with our tax dollars. Those are opportunities that we have to at least condition the vagaries of the market and ultimately ensure that housing is not something that only wealthy people can have security. And I'll give you this reflection on it. I've lived in San Francisco on and off for about 20 years. And in the course of those 20 years, I've lived in almost every neighborhood on the east side of the city. And when I often visit people's homes, you said, I've lived here for 5 or 6 years. I've never had, in the last several years, I think the opportunity to be anywhere more than a few. And that's the experience of renters. And to see a city become inhospitable to longtime residents is, I think, an experience that will spread across the country to communities that haven't experienced it yet. And I heard this explained just the other day through these terms. Because we allocate housing and because we build housing only according to the market, we always lag. As migration moves in response to job opportunities, the market to build housing always lags the demand, as opposed to preceding it, as you can in an economy where you actually have planning as opposed to after-the-fact response signals. The last thing I'd say here is you mentioned my 2018 run and the 2020 run. and the comparison to someone by whom I'm very inspired, Representative Ocasio-Cortez. And we ran in 2018 in the same cycle on very much the same platform, and I got as many votes in our primary in San Francisco as she did here in New York. And I'm back this year to finish the job. We've raised $250,000 already from over 6,500 supporters around the country. Endorsements are rolling in. We've been endorsed by People for Bernie, national grassroots organization, as well as Veterans for Bernie and Bay Area for Bernie. Been endorsed by the California Progressive Alliance, a statewide network of progressives across political parties in California. Been endorsed by DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, San Francisco, and an expanding body of national leaders, internet luminaries like Cory Doctorow and Lawrence Lessig, community luminaries like Gladys Limon, who heads the California Environmental Justice Alliance, Medea Benjamin, who founded Code Pink, Women for Peace, and then several members of our former members of our Board of Supervisors, Eric Marr, Matt Gonzalez, who was very nearly our mayor in 2003. And given all of the expanding support and the year we have left to build the campaign, I'm very confident that we'll have a chance to liberate San Francisco's voice in Washington.
You know, it's interesting to me, obviously, Speaker Pelosi wields the most power of any Democrat. If she wanted to embrace this youth movement going on around the country, if she wanted to embrace the progressive surge going on around this country, 5 years ago, I don't think anyone would have thought Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders would be polling, you know, in a lot of polls, 2 and 3, 1 and 2. If she wanted to do those things and embrace this shift, she could easily do it.
She could.
But recently she keeps saying, well, I think the Affordable Care Act is a better benefit than Medicare for all, not providing any facts to back that up.
Yeah.
She's called the Green New Deal the Green New Dream.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And she's also essentially talked more about, the Electoral College. We need to win the Electoral College, even though this neoliberal strategy is why we have President Trump. I mean, Nancy Pelosi obviously was simpatico with Hillary Clinton, and this illusionary Midwest voter who wants a moderate Democrat to right wing. So what are you, obviously we know you're offering an entirely different thing, but to people watching, why do you think that is, that Speaker Pelosi is doing that? Is it fear? Is it complete out of touchness with her district? Why is it that she's basically intentionally going against the political winds?
I think that it reflects the same reason, frankly, why we're going to take the seat, and it's just generational attitudes and predilections. And she came up in an era, the Reagan era, and I think her attitudes and her construction of reality, her assessment of the political landscape is all inflected by an era that, frankly, we have thankfully shrugged off years ago. And I see a timidity across her various positions. And the healthcare debate is one good example where she has been unwilling to embrace the opportunity to establish healthcare as a human right in the United States. We have the money for it. Most of it's in the Pentagon. You know, there's never been a war or a weapons program that she hasn't liked. And so it challenges her implicit presumptions. And I think that's why she's been unable to respond to the times.
Which I should note, 20 years ago, she, on the Capitol Hill, was pushing for single payer.
She used to be a visionary, and I think she came to Congress with a bright vision, and I think that some combination of the partisan challenges that she confronted, the limits of what she internalized to be possible, and frankly the limits of the generational landscape at the time constrained that vision. And I see what I was going to cite a different example. One of the first things I had an opportunity to do when I first graduated from law school in 2003 was file and organize the first set of lawsuits vindicating the right of consenting adults to marry the partner of their choice. Here in the state of New York, I represented Jason West, who was a small-town Green Party mayor of New Paltz, New York. And at the time, Speaker Pelosi was quite influential. In fact, a few years later, she was the Speaker of the House. And at no point during that time, even as the most powerful Democrat in the country, with the exception of the president at the time, did she see fit to show up for the rights of my neighbors. And as a cis-hetero Muslim, fighting for the rights of LGBT communities, the gulf between our respective willingnesses to champion hard issues could not be more stark, because she, with all the institutional privilege we might want to see in someone, refused to show up until the eve of a decision by a right-wing Supreme Court, which basically obviated the need for her support. And I, as a relatively powerless young lawyer, was fighting that pitched battle in the courts early in that struggle. And whether it's Medicare for all, whether it's challenging the military-industrial complex, in which she's thoroughly complicit, the mass surveillance regime, which she's helped architect, I see her on issue after issue unwilling to embrace the future and entirely too willing to defend a failed predatory past.
And also, Nancy Pelosi has talked about, as Speaker, The Democratic Party, our issues are health care and, fighting for the middle class and this and that.
Right.
But meanwhile, I mean, when
photo ops.
through photo ops, but meanwhile, I mean, Bernie Sanders is the only one talking about it on the debate stage. Yep. You got 500,000 people sleeping on the streets tonight, maybe more now. A lot of them are in San Francisco. And the major thing that people don't understand, because I've seen it, most of these people, a lot of these people are working. A lot of these people are working but still can't afford rent in San Francisco, Seattle, this and that.
That's right.
And I don't really see her talking about those things. I also don't really see her talking about, the fact that why was Trump elected in the first place? Right. Things like NAFTA, TPP, Yes, we could get into Russia and Ukraine, and there's validity definitely to Ukraine. But, I mean, they act like, oh, this was just a foreign government is why he got elected. It has nothing to do with Speaker Pelosi and the Democratic Party's failed vision.
Right. I think that's exactly the response we should expect from careerists trying to protect their position. And ultimately, that's what corporate Democrats are. They are careerists who are putting their own individual interests and the interests of their patrons before the interests of the country and we the people of the United States. And healthcare is a perfect example of that. We could have a healthcare system that treats healthcare like a human right, or we could have a healthcare system like the one we have, which is a predatory, corporate, extractive, industrial engine that treats sickness like an opportunity to drive people into bankruptcy and into the street. Right? Many homeless people are working and can't afford homes. Many homeless people are homeless simply because they got sick. Medical bankruptcy is the leading cause of both bankruptcy and homelessness, and I think that is absolutely shameful for us all as a society. And it's particularly shameful for the architects of the predatory paradigm who refuse to embrace the future, like corporate Democrats and their leader, who I plan to replace next year. The further thing I'd say here with respect particularly to the seemingly relentless focus on the figure of the president, omitting their own role in creating the preconditions that enabled his rise. The corporate Democrats are very eager to construct a narrative that places them in the position of defending the country's interests, even if that shoe doesn't fit. And the only way to make it seem to fit is to position themselves as the antithesis to kleptocracy. And we do have a president who is relentless about taking the tax dollars of the American people and putting them in his pocket. That is particularly an issue that she has refused to bring forward as part of the impeachment inquiry. The violations of the emoluments clause. This is a clause in the Constitution that prohibits self-enrichment at public expense. This criminal president has been enriching himself at public expense since the first day he took office. And the idea that it would take the speaker a year after becoming the speaker to show up for a limited process during which any number of kids have been torn from their mothers, during which any number of people have been shot by right-wing extremists inspired by his vile, hateful, criminal rhetoric. These are incalculable costs that have already passed under the bridge. And now with a limited inquiry, paying attention only to the Ukraine incident, which, let's to be fair, it is a crime to invite foreign interference in an election, yes. The issue that is most likely to flip Republican votes in the Senate is the one that most enrages the Republican base, and that is corruption, full stop. And there's no figure in Washington, even despite the bounty of corruption that we witness in the corporate Democratic Party, there is no figure in Washington as corrupt as our criminal president. And going after corruption is the way to ensure executive accountability. And I think one of the reasons that Speaker Pelosi has been reticent to pursue that line of inquiry is that corruption in Washington is, sadly, a thoroughly bipartisan phenomenon. And that's exactly why I plan to replace her next year, to help clean house, to bring a vision supporting the American people over corporations, and to challenge the executive branch in Congress.
And I also want the audience to know you've kind of been on the leading for years, fighting against bad tech, privacy issues, surveillance, things like that. Yeah. I think right now, I mean, I kind of think Google just owns the world between search rankings, suppression, YouTube censorship, Facebook, we know of all the problems with them. Can you kind of talk about your background in fighting, mass surveillance and against these invasions of privacy?
Thank you so much for that question. I worked at the Electronic Frontier Foundation for the last 4 years. It's the world's largest and heaviest hitting digital civil liberties group. And in that context, I had an opportunity to both build a national grassroots network of nearly 100 organizations in 30 states around the country that are building the movement for digital rights rights in their respective spaces. I also advocated particularly for limits on police surveillance at the local level around the country. One of the most recent high watermarks in that movement I'm very excited about in San Francisco this spring, I had a chance to advocate for the nation's first municipal ban on the use of face recognition and surveillance technology in the hands of government agencies, including police departments. And that local victory has already inspired a national debate that is underway in Congress. And frankly, I'd love to see Speaker Pelosi show up for our city's declared interests in that issue. Just like, frankly, I'd love to see her show up for our city's declared interests in Medicare for All, which our Board of Supervisors has embraced a resolution for. Other ways I fought surveillance, just to lay this out there, for 6 years before I worked for EFF, I led a national nonprofit organization known at the time as the Bill of Rights Defense Committee. I'm now on the board of his successor organization called Defending Rights and Dissent. And we not only fight police surveillance at the local level, we also are particularly concerned about intelligence agencies at the federal level undermining dissent. And that's the lens that I would offer people to understand surveillance through. Yes, surveillance offends privacy. It is, frankly, the least of the values offended by government surveillance. The value I am concerned about is dissent, because we need it for democracy. It's not surveillance, it's not privacy that surveillance most offends. It's democracy that surveillance most offends. And I am a democracy activist. My aim ultimately is to democratize a country that falsely thinks it is free and foolishly thinks it is brave, while we are being preyed upon relentlessly, not only by some of the corporations you mentioned, and I would single out Facebook as a particularly bad actor in the big tech landscape. Maybe just a brief digression there. One of the particular issues that Facebook's been called out recently for is its practice of inviting politicians to pay for false facts to be promoted on the platform. And we know that Facebook has developed one of the world's most addictive brain attention capture machines. And it's one thing to allow politicians to post whatever they want. That would be consistent with the First Amendment. But to accept our money to promote fake news undermines our democracy. So our response, when Facebook's policy went in the news, I guess it was probably 2 weeks ago now, we put together a satirical advertisement, a fake ad, if you will, thanking Speaker Pelosi for giving away all of her many mansions and her Napa Valley vineyard to homeless people to house them in the midst of this housing crisis. And we close it with a vignette noting that Facebook invites politicians to enlarge its pockets by undermining our democracy by peddling fake news.
You should write for The Onion.
Yeah, well, it felt very much like that. It was like hit Speaker Pelosi's, the frankly untenable and unjustifiable wealth in the hands of policymakers, as well as the housing crisis, as well as Facebook's irresponsible decisions with respect to our democracy, all at once. And the power of satire and art is another thing I'm very compelled by. I'm a poet and a DJ and an MC, and so I've been inspired very much, and I'm able to use some very novel outreach opportunities on account of my history as an artist and a lawyer and an advocate and an organizer. And that's the multiplicity of those opportunities, the way they intersect, the history of my resistance to surveillance, and the depth I can offer the squad in Congress on constitutional issues are all more reasons why I'm very confident that we'll have a chance to surprise a lot of people next fall.
And last question, because I know we have it there. Shahid has an event with supporters and other congressional candidates starting in a few minutes. I want to ask you a national question. Yeah. I mean, if you look at 2016, which was more like the Bernie blackout, now it's just like the Bernie beating. I mean, it's literally from corporate media. First they propped up Senator Harris. That didn't work out. Then they kind of moved to Beto. That failed. Then Biden came in, so they thought he was going to save them. Biden obviously has stumbled and then some. I think they've, I don't think she's certainly not as bad as Trump or Biden or any, but they've definitely give kind of nice slobbering coverage to Senator Warren. And they've basically tried to either erase Bernie, or obviously they thought his health issue might bring him down.
Or alternatively, they weaponized it to try to bring him down. Right. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you look at Bernie, obviously their strategy is to try and bring out a lot of non-voters, create this youth mobilization. What do you think in terms of the national race? Because the media is trying as best as they can to have a neoliberal survive and become the nominee.
I think you're absolutely right. I see the parade of centrist careerists as an attempt by the corporate cabal to preserve its position. In the same way that Speaker Pelosi ensures that the focus stays on the president instead of the failure of corporate Democrats to meet the needs of the American people, I think for the same reasons, the Democratic Party and corporate media are aiming to place people who are very deferential to the status quo at the top of the ticket, even to the point at which you'll see polls in which Bernie will be in like second place, and they'll name in the headline the first and third place people. They'll just write him out of the story entirely, and we shouldn't be surprised. These are ultimately corporate outlets that have their own interests and their own shareholders. To even describe them as news, I think, stretches the facts, because they are exposing themselves ultimately as more like propaganda than what we would expect news to be. And my proof in the pudding here, I would just encourage people to wait until the primaries. I have a great deal of confidence in our next president. I'm very proud as a Muslim American to support the first Jewish president, knowing that our interests transcend any faith, they transcend our generation, they transcend the color of our skin, they transcend where we're from, and they unite us as people committed to human rights. And that's why I'm so excited about Bernie Sanders' candidacy, why I was so inspired by him in 2016. My run in 2018 was very directly related to his run in 2016. I saw Bernie do two things that inspired me and educated me. One of them was he demonstrated that the perspective that we share, placing human rights before corporate profit, is not an isolated commitment. It's one that many Americans share, and it took Bernie to help expose that, despite the suppression by the corporate media of that idea. There's a further thing that Bernie did in 2016, and that was demonstrate how to run a political campaign in a way that builds and supports and amplifies and feeds social movements instead of extracting energy from them and bleeding them dry. And our campaign has been rooted in the very same demonstrated solidarity that fuels his campaign. There has not been a labor strike in San Francisco that we have not participated in solidarity with the workers since we launched. There has not been a climate justice action that we have not actively supported and been a part of. There's not been a mobilization for Medicare for all, at least at some scale, that we haven't participated in and helped build. And our actions to help close the camps, to defend human rights in crisis, to expand human rights, to include healthcare, housing, food. These are the ways that we're demonstrating solidarity with not just working class San Franciscans, but all of the people of the United States. Frankly, I dare say all of the people of the world. And maybe I'd leave that as a closing note. One of the reasons I'm so inspired by Bernie, and it's not just me and it's not just us here in the United States, there is a global movement inspired by Bernie Sanders here, because they recognize that in the land of neo-imperial resource plunder, with a military-industrial complex that has been relentlessly warring on the world for generations, a voice is emerging to place human rights at the center. And I think the whole world, frankly, wants to see Bernie win, because we, the people of the earth, need to restrain the climate crisis. That is a shared species-wide imperative, which is why it's one reason why I'm so committed to Bernie. It's one reason why I think so many people around the country are committed to Bernie. And I think it's why so many people around the world want to see him be our next president.
And where can the audience, people, find out more about you, your campaign?
Right on. You can visit us on any of the social media platforms at Shahid for Change, or on the web at shahidforchange.us.
And that's SHAHID.
Yep. FORCHANGE.US.
Cool. I'll let you get to your supporters. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Cool. And go ahead. I'm staying live. So that was Shahid Buttar running against Nancy Pelosi in what is Nancy Pelosi's district, Jen? I don't even know. The 8th district of San Francisco? Whatever. The district in San Francisco. I think he's super, super impressive. I also think that can you hear over that?
Yeah.
Okay. I also think that I don't want to be too simplistic comparing it to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Hey, you could bring people in. You could bring people in. Yeah. I don't want to be too simplistic comparing it to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's race, but honestly, Joe Crowley was asleep. He just thought he was going to cruise to re-election. He said, I'm running against the bartender, and he got his ass kicked. And I think Speaker Pelosi, who's been in Washington very, very long, might currently be sleeping and think that, she's just going to cruise as always. I mean, San Francisco has a lot of old voters, a lot of old money, and she might think that, he's not community organizer and constitutional attorney. Maybe some more people will come out, but he's no threat. And I think that is the opportunity. This arrogance of establishment candidates, this kind of false comfort they have to not take these challengers seriously. I'm not saying he's definitely going to beat her, but so far he's getting significant endorsements. They're doing a lot of organizing on the ground there. So super impressive. I think we're just going to stay live for a little bit because there's going to be speeches here in a little bit that I want to show you. I think there's other candidates that are going to be speaking, and maybe we'll interview some of his supporters. So before I get into some other stories, I want to, Jen, how many people we got watching right now? Huh? 336 people watching. How many likes? 336 people watching, only 219 likes. So I need every single person. Smash that like button. We got Joseph behind the camera. Do it for him. We need more people watching. Again, this is an event with volunteers, supporters of his campaign, so they're going to be coming in here in a few minutes. I believe speeches are going to start in about 15, 20 minutes, so we might as well stay live and then show you that. So a couple public service announcements here. We I think just launched our channel on Twitch. So we're at twitch.tv/status coup. We're trying to grow there too in the event of Armageddon on YouTube, which I discussed yesterday. So definitely go follow us at Twitch. It's twitch.tv/status coup. And everything else, this is a super chat, so leave us some love in the super chat. And if you want us to do more reporting, particularly reporting in the field, go out in the field and cover these candidates from Pelosi's challenger to other progressive candidates. You know the drill. Become a Status Coup member today. Statuscoup.com/join. Statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Am I missing anything? Oh, we just got a new member. So we're now at 729, I think. So our goal is 1,000 by the end of the year. So we have some work to do. And membership, by the way, is not only how we keep the lights on, it's how we protect ourselves against what YouTube is currently doing. You know, they're suppressing us, other independent channels, so that's why we're trying to grow on other platforms. So I want to get a little bit more into Shahid, but I need to tell you something if you don't know. And if you're on an empty stomach, I would not watch right now because you might vomit. I got an alert, an email alert, right before I went live. This is concerning Hillary Clinton, if you're ready for this. Hillary Clinton on Tuesday declined to rule out launching a future presidential campaign, saying, this sounds like Trump, by the way, many people were pressing her to enter the 2020 race. I'm not making this up, folks. Hillary Clinton said many people were pressuring her to enter the race. As I say, I never say, I will certainly tell you I'm under enormous pressure from many people to think about it. But as of this moment, sitting here in this studio talking to you, I don't know who she was talking to, that is absolutely not my plans. So that is a political whistle. In my interpretation, that is not a dog whistle, it's not racism, but that is a political whistle to Wall Street. That is a political whistle to all of the usual suspects. Wall Street, big oil, big pharma, big real estate, all that. Hey, Jen, I don't know if they're waiting for me to let people in. Like, just tell them they could bring people in. I'm just going to stay live, so thanks. That is a dog whistle, a political whistle, to basically say to people, hey, you want to stick with Joe? You want to stick with Joe? Stumbling Joe, who has trouble constructing full sentences, who looks, you know, kind of stuck in 1995, looks like a tired politician, or you want to be stronger together. She's trying, I think this is a signal. I think this is a signal to her donors, her base, the corporate media, which is, they're all part of the same evil axis, to give her feedback and to see if I enter this race, could I basically right away take out Joe Biden and assume Joe Biden's polling position. That's how I read it. I'd like to know what you think, so I'm going to look at the comments here. I honestly, what'd you say? Oh, I honestly, this is somebody who thinks her purpose in life is to be the first woman president, which I'm absolutely all for a woman president, but I'm not for her as the president. Another thing is, I think her arrogance and the out-of-touchness of Hillary Clinton is so thick that she probably is telling herself, if I enter the race, there is enough buyer's remorse of that 10% of voters who had once voted for Barack Obama and then switched to Donald Trump, that I could get that 10% back. I truly think she thinks enough time has passed and enough awfulness has passed with President Trump that she could potentially defeat him in a rematch. I think if she runs, it would be absolutely amazing. I know you don't want to hear that from me, but I think if Hillary Clinton gets in this race, oh my God, it would be an early Christmas for a Jew named Bernie Sanders. Can you imagine? Can you imagine for a second if Hillary Clinton enters this race? And by the way, the deadline to register in New Hampshire, I think, is soon. I don't know if it's this week or next week. It would galvanize Bernie Sanders' base probably more than Elizabeth Warren has galvanized Bernie Sanders' base.
Check.
Probably more than Joe Biden has galvanized Bernie Sanders'
place.
place.
Start making your way to the back right now.
Trump?
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know who.
Get it signed in. Please sign in.
I don't know what other singular figure could galvanize Bernie Sanders' base, and possibly.
Once again, if you're here for Shahid Buttar's event, please start making your way to the back now.
Possibly, bring some of those Bernie supporters who have moved over to Warren, possibly bring them back in the Bernie tent. Am I? You.
I was not listening.
Well, come. And remember to press the like button. Am I wrong here on a possible Hillary Clinton re-entry?
I'm terrified. I actually didn't read the whole thing. Jordan showed it to me before he grabbed Shahid, and no, you're right. It is a total silent whistle or whatever it is of just signaling to everybody, I might be back. It's really scary. Stay in the woods, Hillary.
I want to thank Teresa Allen, $6 in the super chat. Kelly Elaine, $2. Love the interview. Thanks so much. Yes, this is a super chat. So if you like coverage like this, leave more in the super chat. Consider becoming a Status Quo member. I can't see you.
Keep talking.
Oh, okay. Super Chat has stickers now, too. Super Chat has stickers now. And also, as you can see, people are coming in for Shahid's event. This is an event probably, a mix of signing up new volunteers, probably a fundraiser, a grassroots fundraiser. I assure you there's no bankers showing up. Or maybe there's undercover bankers showing up. But I like being here in these beginning stages, because I'm not trying to be simplistic and just compare it to AOC's candidacy, but it's important to be here in the early stages of a campaign and give it the media coverage it deserves, because what if he wins?
Right.
What if he wins?
Can you imagine if he wins? Just how much that would mean to the country. I mean, as you said yesterday, Nancy Pelosi is third in line for the presidency, and that is just a terrifying thought. If he wins, just how revolutionary that would be. I was so impressed. This is the first time I've met him. I think the first time you've met him in person. He's a very impressive guy. Just very smart, extremely progressive, very friendly. I'm very, very impressed and taken with him. So what if he does? What they used to say on TYT, whisper of a dream.
TYT. I hear they have a big announcement tonight, so I don't want to interrupt. The other thing that I find interesting, and I'm just making sure, did I retweet this already? Hold on.
I tweeted everything.
Oh, good. Another thing that I find interesting is Pelosi, like I said, she's not paying attention to this guy.
No.
She's not knocking on doors in San Francisco. She's just assuming that the people that vote for her will keep coming out to vote. I assume San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's congressional district, is a somewhat low turnout type of thing year to year. So if he is basically turning out new voters, I don't live in San Francisco, but I know enough to know there's a lot of economic despair and frustration to go around. It might not take, I'm not saying it would be easy, but it might take bringing out an extra few thousand voters to beat her. And I think, obviously, defeating Donald Trump is of singular importance, but I think if Nancy Pelosi would be able to be defeated, that almost would be a bigger thing than obviously Bernie Sanders winning the nomination would once and for all defeat the neoliberal beast. But I think him taking out Nancy Pelosi would definitely go a long way to doing that too.
Yeah, well, we have AOC, which was just extraordinary. Everyone was absolutely shocked by that. If it happens again, it would snowball. The corporatist Democrats would feel that pressure to become more progressive. They would see that this is real. This is a real movement. You talk about turnout. If Shahid gets people knocking on doors, gets people canvassing, which I know that's what he plans to do, this grassroots organizing, and that's what it's all about, is turning out the voters. That's how AOC won. It would just be extraordinary. And another thing that you hit on was Nancy Pelosi has no idea. She's not paying attention. These people have such hubris. And that's the definition of Hillary Clinton. But Nancy Pelosi also falls into that too. Like, she doesn't think she could lose her seat. It doesn't even cross her mind. She doesn't care. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of energy behind this. We're sitting here in Queens, and the turnout here already, and if people are still coming in, is great. We're not.
And by the way, it's like 15, 20 degrees out here in New York City. It is cold, yet people are still coming out. So
yeah, and it's not. Obviously, we're nowhere near his district for a local race. Like, this is, to me, incredible. This is the power of the progressive movement. I think people are really feeling it. They're really putting their energy behind it. And it's freezing in the building too, like not just outside. And people are really, really turning out, very excited. The energy's good.
Teresa Allen, $2 in the super chat. Thank you. Larry, the truth. That can't be my father, can it? $5 in the super chat. We don't need Warren, Biden, Hillary Clinton, or any corporate scumocrats. I agree. I like that. Blah, 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 blah. Keep it coming in the super chat. Also, however many people are watching right now, if you want more reporting like this in the field, we're in the field, but like out across America, you got to become a member. Sign up. statusquo.com/join. And I think a meeting we had this afternoon is another reason they should become a member. I'm not going to go into detail, but Jen and I had a meeting before this with a fairly well-known outlet about a major story we've been working on. Some of you get agitated, like, Jordan, why aren't you live every day? Or, Jordan, you're slacking. Joseph filled in for me a few days, which was great. And Jen's been working with me on this story. But, yeah, today was a good sign. When I say this story is a game changer, I mean, like, you can't even find the best screenwriter to write the script and really you can't make this up, how corrupt and evil what we found is. What are your thoughts on our meeting today? I wish we could give them more hints, but
I feel really bad because it feels like we're constantly teasing people and talking about, oh, we have this major story, we're having these meetings. We just literally can't talk about it for a lot of reasons, including personal safety. And but the meeting itself today, all I can say is it went really well. The people we're talking to about it and working with are very into it. I feel like they get it. They understand its importance, its massive importance. And I don't know, I'm feeling good. I don't want to get my hopes up because we've had major outlets kill stories the day before in the past. So I'm trying to temper my excitement, but I feel excited. I feel good. And you talk about screenwriters. I think honestly, like if someone wrote this screenplay, someone would tell them to tone it down a little bit because it's that wild.
And I also think that, boy, some individuals that have really, really escaped justice for many years should be worried. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say.
The truth is coming for you, people out there.
Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Somebody said, yes, this is in Astoria right now. We're in Astoria, New York City at Catch with a K, K-A-T-C-H. So if you want to brave the cold, it's a poppin' event so far. I see a couple dozen people coming in. I see congressional candidate Lauren Ashcraft, who I've interviewed before. She's trying to take out Carolyn Maloney, a congresswoman here. Carolyn Maloney also has just taken over as the chairwoman of the Oversight Committee, taking over from the late Elijah Cummings, who recently passed away. But yeah, you see good energy here. So we'll stay live to hear the speeches and all that. But I'll also say, for those of you that don't know, we recently met our GoFundMe goal of $85,000. So we hit that goal on Sunday. I think Jen is responsible for that. She was up here. So now that GoFundMe is done, we're really, really pivoting, I would say. We're going to trying to grow our membership. So outside of just this story that we're working on, which is major, we're going to be trying to cover more of the campaign events. So New Hampshire, about a 4 or 5 hour drive from New York City. So we're going to go to try and cover Biden events in the next few weeks. We're going to try and cover Warren events in the next few weeks. And I'm going to try to not get angry right now. Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who honestly, I think it is embarrassing on behalf. Well, I don't expect anything from CNN, MSNBC, these outlets, but this candidate is literally a creation of just millions of dollars of free advertising from CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post. There is no there. But a poll today, in fairness, I haven't had time to look at in detail. It's probably similar to the other Monmouth polls that wildly oversample old people. Pete Buttigieg in this poll was #1 in Iowa.
But it was really bad. We were watching CNN earlier, and it popped up on the screen, and Jordan's like, oh no, look at this. He's at 22%. And I think they said that's a 14-point lift. I'm stunned. This candidate is completely manufactured, just totally built like pieces put together and built by millionaires. And it's horrifying to me. Who are these people who want Pete Buttigieg to be their president? I cannot deal.
And I also, I'll get to Mayor Pete in a minute, but I also want to let you know, I'm putting it in the super chat, we are done with the GoFundMe, but that doesn't mean your generosity needs to stop. So I'm putting in right here. Did I put that link in right? No, that's not the right link. Hold on. Ba-ba-ba. Why is it giving me this fakakta link? Can you get me the donate link?
By the way, as a behind the scenes, like anything technological, this is what happens. Here, you do it for me.
So, you tell them about the recurring donation.
Yeah, so we've had people come to us and say, I've made donating to Status Quo part of my monthly budget. People are literally building it in, which to me shows the power of the type of journalism that we're doing and how important it is to people to give the microphone back to the people. So Jordan came up with the idea to have monthly recurring donations. Our GoFundMe is over, although you could still donate to it if you really want. But this page that Jordan just pasted in will allow you to set up a Bernie style $27 a month that'll just automatically come out. You can support our investigative and in-field journalism that way without having to physically do it every week. Makes it easy.
So definitely keep that coming. I mean, obviously the GoFundMe was a major accomplishment. We thank you. But we're not going to lie. We could still use recurring donations. And obviously the number one thing we're trying to achieve is growing our membership. So every single one of you, if you find it in your budget, $5 to $10 a month, it makes a huge difference. And apparently we have breaking news. Apparently it was needed for the Young Turks to announce who they endorse. Cenk Uygur has endorsed Bernie Sanders. So we could all rest comfortably at night that it was even up for debate who they were going to endorse between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. But apparently Cenk has taken the courageous step to endorse Bernie Sanders. I digress. Let's hear what they're talking about here. Are they going to be able to pick it up, or do I need to go closer? Yes.
Hello, everybody. Is everybody ready to campaign for Shahid Buttar? I'm Michael Brooks. It's my pleasure and honor to be here, and I'm so excited about sending this man to Congress. You know, Nancy Pelosi is going to be a structural threat to any agenda, even if we elect Bernie Sanders president. She said that she opposes health care. She's going to implement pay-go. That wasn't just her posturing to look good on the Sunday morning shows. That's a commitment. That's a commitment to austerity. And a commitment to austerity means a commitment to poverty, inequality, people dying premature deaths, right? And I don't talk about it very much, but in my background, even though I'm very much not looking like it right now, there was a lot of economic instability and dealing with things like homelessness. And we need somebody who has that at the center of their agenda and at the center of their art. And that's definitely Shahid. I also talked with Shahid last night on my show, and we were talking about Lula da Silva, the recently released political prisoner from Brazil. Lula libre, Lula finally libre. And solidarity with him. And I asked Shahid, I said, in Congress, would you fly to a place like Curitiba and meet with a political prisoner and use the prestige of your office in that way too? And he said, absolutely, and I meet with prisoners here. And I said, what about Leonard Peltier, who's a Native American activist who served decades in prison? And Shahid said, oh yeah, no, I worked on appealing one of his cases once. It's like, okay. Shahid has the answer for everything that we care about, from Medicare for all, housing for all, protecting our constitutional system, which also is going to be vital in an era when activism is essential for everything. Whether it's the movement for Black Lives Matter, which is threatened by the FBI right now, or even the grassroots mobilization that will be necessary to help implement a Bernie Sanders and progressive agenda that all of these incredible candidates here tonight are working on fighting for. So I'm gonna not spend too much time talking. I'm gonna start getting the show rolling, and I'm gonna begin with my friend Nomiki Kant. Did I pronounce it right? So Nomiki is the co-founder of Matriarch, which is a new PAC that, can I just
go for it?
Go up? Okay.
Yeah.
If Emily's list was cool, that's it.
I didn't say that.
All right. Yeah, she didn't say that. I did. If Emily's list had a degree of strategic savvy and an ounce of class awareness, it might be a third of what Matriarch is. You also know her from her work on the Democratic Reform Commission, her surrogacy for Bernie Sanders, her candidacy, which made this place a hub for leftism in Queens and New York City. And you can see her on any number of media outlets, television, just basically.
I filled in for you today.
You filled in for me today on the majority, which was great. I was sleeping. Without further ado, my friend Nomiki Kans.
Also, our campaign gave you a budding host. Yeah, that's yours. 1,011. Because you're gonna get this sickness if you. Warning: if you come and say hi to me, do not hug me. I have remnants of very persistent cold. So, you're doing it. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting for someone to be a clear threat to the almighty Nancy Pelosi, and you're doing it. So I think before we even get started, let's just give you a round of applause because it takes courage to run for office. I speak from experience. It takes tremendous courage to run for office against the establishment. It takes an extraordinary amount of courage to run on a progressive platform, and on top of all that, to call them out for what they're doing wrong. This campaign, I haven't been doing a lot of endorsements lately, a little burned out, but when I spoke to you on the phone, within 2 minutes, I was like, this is the guy we've been waiting for. And seriously, you know, what I've been so impressed with Shahid is, how do I say your name properly? I did? Oh, good, practice that. Is his not only his track record of taking on the establishment through his legal career. I mean, let's put this in perspective. When people get out of law school, they're broke, right? How many people get out of law school and they're broke? And they take whatever job, even if it's just for a couple years, so later they can do good. They'll take jobs to help them pay their right into the belly of the beast and became an activist from day one. That's courage, and that is exactly the type of person that we need in Congress. We need you duplicated in Congress, but it's exactly the type of person that is going to offer the best narrative against Nancy Pelosi. I don't think we need to convince anybody in this room what Nancy Pelosi is representing to us right now in this country. She has continuously gone on air and questioned the validity of Medicare for All. She has said that we are a corporate country. She has four times gone on air and said that. 4 minutes. Oh. 4 times 4 minutes. Thank you. I didn't know I had a timekeeper. So Nancy Pelosi is consistently questioning our facts. The people of the United States who are dealing with these issues of income inequality every single day. She is challenging them, and she's saying straight to our faces on air, "You're wrong. I know better. One of the richest members in Congress. I know better. And you should be afraid of me because I control Congress. I control what bills get, I control who gets a good seat on what committee, who has seniority, who gets to speak, who gets money from the DCCC. There's a whole ecosystem in place. Who gets support from Emily's List, who gets support from other progressive organizations, progressive in quotations. That is the power of Nancy Pelosi. And some say, well, no, she's from San Francisco, it's a little bit different. They're more progressive there. You know, but she has to balance Congress out. The rest of the country's not so progressive. I think that most of the country is hurting economically right now. And no matter what it is, what issue, if it is born from that place of solving the problems related to income inequality, economic injustice, then you can cross over to Republicans, you can cross over to Democrats in San Francisco, Republicans in Queens, Democrats in Queens, and across the country. So there are no more excuses. She is speaking clearly, as we all know, from a corporate perspective. And what I love about your campaign is that not only are you calling her out for that in a very elegant way, if I may say, but you're getting, as a lawyer does, to the specifics. You hone in on what about donor XYZ is perpetuating the income inequality in San Francisco. For those of you who don't know, just like New York City, the income inequality in San Francisco is also, I think it's the top 2 in the country. I think we go back and forth a little bit, New York, San Francisco, New York, San Francisco. And the city is being overdeveloped by large real estate developers. The land is being used by oligarchs to place their money. to hide their money. So if you're buying apartments in San Francisco, you say, why are my apartment costs going up? You know, some of that has to do with the fact that real estate is being used to hide money. The same money that the Democrats call out for being corrupt, you know, the Russian oligarchs, Chinese oligarchs, whatever it is, they're using the money to evade taxes, to keep their money safe in the real estate, and it's increasing the cost of living, along with a million other issues. So what I'm inspired by is not just your courage, not just the fact that there's finally somebody willing to step up and challenge Nancy Pelosi, but that you also have the background to do so in an effective way. So you won't just be a junior member of Congress when you enter. You're going to be a courageous member of Congress. You're going to go join the squad and the Barbara Lees and the Camilla Jayapals. You're going to make that progressive caucus progressive, and you're going to most likely inspire others to do what you're doing. So even, I think you're going to win. But even if not, right now in your race, you're inspiring people in your neighborhood, in California, across the country to do the same. People with similar backgrounds. Law students who may have wanted to go cash out are wanting to do what you're doing. So on behalf of the United States of America, I thank you. And if you have not done so already, pull out your phones. And if you're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the things that the Zoomer caucus uses now. Those dance apps, I don't know what they're doing. TikTok, yes. I want you to advocate, to give money to this campaign. Because campaigns cannot happen. Someone has to work with the volunteers. Somebody has to be able to make the phone calls with Shahid as he's doing donor calls and calling people in his community. Somebody has to be able to cut the clips of him on air. So do me a favor, give this campaign a plug, and if you haven't done so already, contribute whatever you can and double it if you can. And get it on that monthly rotation, that weekly rotation. Speaking from experience, it makes a huge difference. I think that's it. So thank you all for coming to my neighborhood tonight. Thank you for coming to my neighborhood tonight. And donate!
Yeah, no Mickey Const, everybody. I want you to do every single thing that Nomiki said, and then I want you to go look up the clip of Nancy Pelosi talking about single payer last week. And then I want you to go back to Shahid's page and contribute more, if you can. That's incredibly important. And I want you to share that clip of her saying that she will be a primary enemy of every single human being in this country having health care with everybody you know that cares about such things. And then tell them that there's not only an upgrade, there's actually, in fact, this is like an exact TikTok. I won't do it, but it works. And the other thing is, we have these incredible leaders. We have Ilhan Omar, we have AOC, we have Rashida Tlaib, we have Bernie Sanders. But the point is that they are supposed to be what my friend Bhaskar Sankara calls the pre-mainstream. We don't want to be on the margins, talking about Amazon, talking about housing, talking about foreign policy, talking about our civil liberties. We want to win, so life is better for tens of millions of people. And we need to elect people to do that. And then we need to work in a synchronized way to provide the political context and environment for the next wave of the battle. So we need to elect a whole bunch of people to Congress, like Shahid, like Michaela Wilkes, who isn't here tonight, like a whole bunch of other folks. And one of these people that we need to elect is Isaiah James, who is... We've been supposed to have coffee for a long time. About a month. He's running against Yvette Clarke. She takes more money than Amazon than anybody else in Congress, at least in the New York delegation. There's a lot of people who go to Congress and say what you're supposed to say about Donald Trump or whatever else, but when it comes to people in neighborhoods losing their ability to live there, they're not only doing nothing, they're fundamentally part of the problem. So let's have an activist, an organizer, a veteran with a clear agenda that comes with where he's from. Isaiah James.
First, I want to say thank you all for coming out and braving the cold. And I've seen a lot of familiar faces here from the Bronx, from Harlem, from all over, and that should be a testament to you, brother, that the people are with you. You know, when Shahid's people reached out to me and said, would you be willing to speak at his event? I said, say no more. Because I had been following Shahid on social media for a long, long time. I had been seeing all your interviews and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? This is somebody right here who is willing to take on the corporate Democrats. But he's not just taking on the corporate Democrats. He is literally taking on the head of the state. And yes, I said the head of the state. Nancy Pelosi is somebody whose net worth has increased 500% since her time taking office. And as a public servant, if your net worth increases 500%, you're already letting the people know that you're not on our side. You're on the side of the corporatists, the corporations, and all the problems that are ours. So when Shahid's people reached out to me, I said I would be honored to speak at this event. We're living in a time right now where we're on a precipice in this country, or where we're going to go. Income inequality is through the roof. Racism is rampant. It's not hiding anymore. It's rearing its ugly head. If you live in New York City, you know you're seeing the videos daily of police officers assaulting people of color, black people, all over our city. This is not happening more, it's just getting filmed more. That's right. And why is it? And why is it getting filmed more? It's getting filmed more, one, because the GOP and the Republicans, they're for it, and these goddamn corporate Democrats have no spine to stand up to it. So we have a choice in this country on where we're going to go. People like Shahid and my friend Peter and my friend Lauren, all of us who are running for Congress, we're standing up right now and saying that we are no longer going to accept the things that we cannot change. We are here to change the things that we can no longer accept. And we are saying that this is what democracy looks like. People from all walks of life, all backgrounds, coming together to harness our collective power to say that the system as it exists cannot stand if it will not serve the needs of the people. So, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm a man of brevity. Shahid, I am with you 100%, brother. I'm standing here right now tonight, proud, even though when they said, would you enjoy Shahid, I was like, well, who the hell am I? But I am standing here right now proud to give you my endorsement for Congress. This isn't a moment. This is a movement. And you're leading it out there on the West Coast.
Isaiah James, everybody. Let's have another upgrade. No more of that cog. Isaiah James, no friend of Amazon. He doesn't want to turn Brooklyn into a big money laundering housing operation, but actually a place where families can live.
Yep. That's where my district, Flatbush, is where my family's American dream started. My father immigrated to Flatbush, New York, from the tiny little island of Jamaica, and he picked fruit in upstate New York. So that literally is the roots of me being here.
Get him elected to Congress. Do you guys remember what it felt like? There's a qualifier to this. How many of you had heard of Joe Crowley before he got beat? All right, yeah, we'll leave a smart crowd. I barely knew who he was. How did you feel when he lost? It felt pretty good. Would you like to replicate that experience? We can replicate that experience in a whole lot of ways tonight, but very specifically, the great Lauren Ashcroft is running against Carolyn Maloney, who is another person that occasionally will show up and say the right thing, but has not done anything substantive.
Pandas.
Sorry?
She wants to save the pandas. Come on.
Well, I'm sure Lauren wants to save the pandas too, no, Nikki. Everybody wants to save the pandas. Damn. But Lauren not only wants to save the pandas, she also wants to solve income inequality and address the housing crisis and get Medicare for everybody and have a housing plan, which is so fundamental in all of the races we're talking about. As Nomiki said, San Francisco and New York are the two most unequal places in the country. And then you have these national politicians who walk around talking about how they care about progressive values while people lose their homes and people get arrested in the fucking subway for selling some fruit. It's disgusting. And sorry? Churros. Add fruit too. It's multiple cases. So we need to elect Lauren. I'm incredibly excited. We've already done one event before. Lauren Ashcroft, please.
Thank you, Michael Brooks. But also, Shahid, I'm so honored to have you here tonight. This right here catches the home of Queens progressive politics, and it's also a base for my campaign. So I'm really thankful that Roseanne has been so gracious with the progressive movement, and it's so awesome that you're here tonight in person and we all get to meet you. And as you all know, this movement is not about one of us making it to Congress. We all have to make it to Congress. And part of that is because one of us isn't enough to get in there and change it all. We have to get in there as a group and just flip everything. So whenever we're running for office, our radar is kind of going off and looking for partners that represent the same values and are fighting the same things. And I have been a personal fan of you for a very long time, but also I see you as someone who is fighting for the same thing as me, and that is to get corporate money out of politics. If you look at all of the major issues that we're facing in our society, from why do we still rely on this incredibly broken for-profit healthcare system while people are dying and they're rationing their insulin and people are afraid to go to the emergency room because they're going to end up with a lifetime worth of medical debt? Why? Corporate money in politics. If you look at why we're still arresting people who can't afford a $2.75 subway swipe, we as a society want to fill for-profit prisons for profit because that money goes back to corporate politicians. And if we look at why we still rely on fossil fuel energy instead of moving in the right direction, which is the Green New Deal, and fixing our infrastructure and fighting to make jobs out of creating a green infrastructure that's going to save our planet so that our children and grandchildren have a planet to live on. That is the kind of change that I'm fighting for, and that's the kind of change that I see you fighting for. And that's why I'm so proud to endorse you, Shahid. And also we have some fun things in common, both former/current entertainers, both activists, and both running in the 12th district of our country. And our districts both represent very visual examples of income inequality. This district right here has $50 million condos and also people living in extreme mold, people that are carrying their oxygen tanks and walkers upstairs because NYCHA doesn't give a shit about fixing their elevators, and people sleeping on the streets. because every single person sleeping on the street is a failure of every single representative that represents them. So I want you in the other 12th district, and I can't wait to get to DC together. Thank you so much.
Lauren Ashcroft. And the same principle applies for everybody running here. Get out your phones, spread the message on social media, follow their feeds, contribute to their campaigns. There's a lot of different ways of helping. One of the things that's so important about Shahid is his using his legal skills for good and not evil. I felt a little mixed today. These leaks about Stephen Miller, I don't like, right. He is a vicious racist and bigot. I mean, okay. It confirmed what we already knew, that the senior point person for immigration in this White House is a bigot in every way, shape, and form. And it also, to me, showed that so much of the problem is that there's a lot of people in Congress, again, who are very able to posture on CNN and talk a big game about oversight and accountability, when, frankly, there really has not been a tremendous amount. We've had budgets approved for ICE. We've had all sorts of funding mechanisms to essentially continue the Trump agenda, while people have gone on television and talked about how horrified they are by it, let alone dealing with the underlying symptoms that lead to Trump and Trump-like things, which is another reason that we need Shahid in Congress. We need him to replace Nancy Pelosi. This is urgent for all of us. It isn't just because you're a great guy. It matters. And we also need another significant upgrade. I mean, I think I've heard of Jerry Nadler when I was a kid. And I don't exactly know what he does. I know he doesn't like Donald Trump, and I know that, anytime Israel does anything, it's fine. That's all I know. And so I want to introduce you to a dynamic challenger of Jerry Nadler, Lindsey Boylan, who is running in New York's 10th district.
So my dad grew up a few blocks from here, and I think he'd be fucking surprised that this cool bar is here. I mean, Queens is the place to be, and it's the heart of the progressive movement in the city of New York, and I dare say it's the heart of the progressive movement in this country. Unfortunately, that's not part of my district, but I gotta say I'm really proud because people like Carolyn Maloney haven't done much for my family. My family has had a real hard time living in the New York 10th Congressional District, is right up the block, and people like Carolyn Maloney haven't done much to help them. Whether we're talking about housing, we're talking about health care, we're talking about mental health, any of the issues that Shahid is fighting for, we've had our leaders just absent. We have two candidates here tonight hoping to represent the district, and I'm really excited about Lauren and Pete here as well. When I think about getting into Congress and taking Jerry Nadler's seat and actually getting a few things done, since he's only passed 3 pieces of legislation in 30 years.
See, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, it's exciting. One of those pieces is actually naming a building after the guy who died in office so he could get the seat. That's the kind of stuff that incumbents do. That's the kind of things they do. Okay, 4 minutes, got it. I was like, no, it's 3 pieces, not 4 pieces of legislation. And you think about, how are we going to do this? How are we going to change things? Because the cards are stacked against us. They really are. I've had a lot of advantages my parents didn't have. I've worked for some of the most powerful men in this city and in this country. The behind the scenes ain't that great. I don't really want to replicate that. And I think, how do we change this? And sometimes it's really wonderful and powerful because you have people like Gabriel who are fighting every day for climate change, who are fighting every day for income inequality. These are my residents in my district. And then you think, how are we going to get this done? And then you think about people like Shahid, and you think, if we could have a brilliant person like that represent us, if I could have a brilliant person like that defend me, my civil liberties, my rights, I'd choose him any day over Nancy Pelosi. Okay? He's a much smarter man, and I'm quite sure where his ethics are. I'm quite sure what he believes in. The Affordable Care Act has a lot of problems, and I'm pretty sure I'm in good company when I say it's not good enough. But one of the things I want to highlight is that Nancy Pelosi said, we'll find out what's in the law when it gets printed. And I think that's bullshit. Because we cannot have someone who has such a powerful position say that they don't know what's in the law they're passing. Because you know what happens? The ACA was a great advancement, but it's now completely not believable because no one trusts that the things that our legislative bodies spend their time on actually help people. And that's what's wrong with America. She can talk about doing things that are helpful, and it actually has no helpful impact to most people. And I think that's really a big problem. And I have no doubt that the 12th district of California will be much better represented by Shahid. And I'm just really excited to support him and to get to know him and compare notes. And I've just been very impressed by everything you're doing.
Lindsay Boylan, another upgrade. Another really important thing is we need somebody to represent Silicon Valley and San Francisco who, first and foremost, cares about actual working people in San Francisco to the extent that they are still allowed to be there. And also, the other incredibly important part of electing somebody is you need somebody who is willing to not only regulate Silicon Valley, but actually understand that these monopolies, these, in my view, really public utilities that need to be treated as such, are an opportunity and they're also a structural threat. Nancy Pelosi does not, what agenda does she have for that?
Nothing.
What agenda does she have for that?
She's a master fundraiser.
She's a great fundraiser. The Tony Blair Institute just put out a report on how to regulate technology. You know, this is serious. Why is it that a guy who hasn't been in elected office for at least a decade and spends most of his time, lobbying for what? He was on the Epstein list. It's true. It's true. It's just a contact, though. There's other folks who maybe, yeah.
He was circled.
Tony Blair is more into the Saudi lobbying, you know? A certain degree of class. But the point is that...
Is that what that is?
Absolutely. But the point is that why, and his prescriptions are wrong, but why is it that he is thinking about that and the Speaker of the House of Representatives who represents this district has nothing on it? Has nothing on protecting your data, has nothing on breaking up these companies, certainly has nothing on nationalizing them, has nothing on their implications for democracy, has nothing on the future effects of when we build in class bias and race bias and gender bias into machine learning and AI systems. These are, people use a lot of cliches about innovation and new challenges, most of which are bullshit. Hashtag old ideas. Medicare for all is an old idea. It's right. It's good. No new ideas. But this is an area, actually, where we need somebody who understands where we are and thinks in a truly democratic and truly socialist manner. That's Shahid.
Yes.
We all know where a lot of Bernie's donors, most of Bernie's donors, right? Walmart employees, Amazon employees, and the base, the foundation, teachers, public education. need to know. I just have to do 10 seconds for Bernie, and it helps set you up. Because the great Kat Bresler is the founder of People for Bernie, and she's a public school teacher. And she's about to crush it. Can we just say that Bernie has Kat? Bernie has Lula. Bernie has Cornel West. Bernie has Shahid. Bernie has Killer Mike, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Cardi B, and Cornel West. I don't know what the fuck else people want to support this guy. And a major part, though, of the momentum of this campaign, and even more importantly, the momentum of what happens the day after we elect all of these excellent candidates and a Bernie Sanders presidency, is the movement. And that's why People for Bernie is so important, and that's why I'm so excited to hear from you, Kat. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name's Kat Bresler. I'm the co-founder for the People for Bernie Sanders. We've definitely already endorsed Shahid, and we are happy to do so. But what I want to talk to you about tonight, and you may not know that I have been teaching in the Bronx for the last 4 years. I was up for tenure this last year, and I got injured in the line of duty. Guess what happened? My tenure did not get confirmed. I had to look for a new position. That means I'm now paying for COBRA out of pocket month by month. Guess how much that cost me? More than $700 a month. You know what happens if we get Medicare for all? I don't have COBRA payments. I believe in a Bernie Sanders presidency, but I also believe that I need to change Congress to make a Medicare for all a reality. I can't change Congress without you, Shahid. Without all of the people that are running for Congress right now in this room, I would name each and every one of you, but that would take a little bit of time. And I want to thank you all for standing unabashedly for Medicare for all, because my family, my father is a physician and my mother is a nurse, and by the way, National Nurses United just came out for our homie the second time in a row. Super excited about that. But it has informed my ideology. As the co-founder for the People for Bernie Sanders, I've seen in our comments, people recommend to folks to take fish antibiotics if they're sick. I'm a little tired of that. I don't want to see that in my comments anymore. I also don't want to have to explain to folks how hard it is for all of us anymore. On my way down here, a girlfriend called me and she said, you know, I'm dating somebody new. They're a DACA recipient, and I'm watching on the news what's going on, and I'm wondering, how can I be more helpful? And I told her about being more active in her church and getting her church to be a sanctuary for folks. But I also had to have a very serious conversation with a very long-time girlfriend of mine and say, I know you've only been dating him for a while, but it's just a piece of paper. It's just a contract. And you guys can unpack what that means emotionally, but you can save one of us. And because of that, his mother might be able to move further along in the process. And that's something that you really have to think about. I'm sick and tired of having those conversations with my friends, my family, and people around me. And I'm tired of hearing those stories. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so enthusiastic to support you, because of the work that you have been doing around Abolish ICE, because of the work that you've done for the immigrant community. My brother lives in San Francisco. He'll be voting for you, don't worry, we got that one on lock. But what I know about that community is that they are master tenants, people that have mastered what it is to be a tenant, because they have to know what their rights are. They have to know how to fight and advocate to stay in their home. And what we know in New York City, here in Astoria, and we share that in common. Nomiki said as much. Housing is a human right. I don't want to have to advocate to my congressional representative that fact. I want my congressional representative to be advocating for that. And since I have a time limit, and we are getting to that time limit, it's super easy to find this website. It's on your table. I know that you all have donated because you came to this room because you care. I need you to donate a little bit more, and you know what? I got you, brother. I got 19, I think it is, dollars. Can you? Thank you. If you've got cash in your pocket and you don't really need it, we all really need it. Let's be honest. None of us are from the 1% are donating to Nancy Pelosi. But if you have 3, 5, 7 extra dollars in your pocket, Big D, I need you to help my brother. I need you to help all of us because we need to change Congress. And I couldn't be happier to be here tonight, to give up whatever, it doesn't matter, to come here across the bridge from the Bestchester. We all know how much I feel. I love the Bestchester. Don't call it upstate, I might hurt you. But I came here because, oh, brother, when I met him, we've spoken on the phone a few times, and it was like kin immediately. But when we saw each other at the DSA National Convention, when I sat down next to him, I sat down next to him and it was kin. It wasn't like uncomfortable or like maybe I had to say something. We immediately got to organizing the space immediately around us. That's what organizers do. That's what I need in Congress. I need organizers in Congress fixing this shit. Thank you, Shahid, for running. Love you so much. $19 is what I got in my pocket, brother. I'm gonna fill it out. I'm gonna
fill out the form. Nomiki's worried. Pat Bressler, People for Bernie, public school teacher from upstate. I'm a troublemaker. And I realize a lot of people have been talking about endorsements, and I mean, to be transparent, I'm still weighing my options, Shahid. Nancy Pelosi has a lot of experience. Did you see that clip in 1993 where Nancy Pelosi said that the Clinton bill was not close enough to single payer? Yeah. Well, maybe when she had a Baltimore accent, she slightly cared for people. Ooh. But that has been decades. No, it's true.
It's true.
Not supporting Medicare for all is it might be a passive-aggressive version of saying that hundreds of thousands of people should die prematurely, but that's what it means in practice. Bernie Sanders' immigration plan is incredibly impressive. And it's impressive not only because it does the right thing in so many crucial areas, it's also because it thinks systemically. It connects the obvious dots that don't usually get connected in policy. Foreign policy, labor. That's how you take away immigration as an issue from people who can demonize legitimate fears and misdirect it away from capital towards other workers. When you talk with Shahid, he is one of the most systemic thinkers I've ever encountered in my life. You give him a question, he answers it, which is interesting. And he connects it to a related thread, and then he amplifies it, and then he gives you something new. And this intellect is always driven by such a clear heart for the issue, and such an actual caring for human beings. That really is the root of this. I mean, why else would we be here? You have to care. For yourself, for everyone else. We need to elect this guy to Congress. We need to elect everybody here to Congress. We need to elect Russ Cirincione, who I think is also here to Congress. Yeah. Shout out to Russ. Shahid, it's really my honor to do this. I hope every little bit helps, brother. Let's get you elected. Come talk to us.
Y'all know I was an MC before I was a lawyer, right? Yeah! Astoria in the house. Let me hear you say revolution. Come on. Revolution. Say it. Revolution. Come on. Revolution. I can mean it. Revolution. Revolution. One more time. Revolution. Come on. Revolution. What brings us together today, this evening, in Astoria, and I'm so stoked, y'all, to see everybody here. I'm so excited for the support that we've been getting from each of you, from our incredible speakers this evening. Just a particular shout out to Nomiki and to Lauren and to Isaiah and to Lindsay and to Kat and to Michael and all of you for being here. I'll put it to you like this. I am an immigrant to the United States without a family legacy. I don't own any property. The idea that I'm in a position to challenge the most prolific corporate fundraiser in the country is a testament not to me, but to us. And when our next president speaks of not me, us, what he means is that there's several dimensions to the three words that I want to lay out for us. And one of them is that each of us are standing not only here as individuals to represent our communities, but we're standing here already representing movements as we aim to represent our cities and our capital. Not me, us also means that each of us has to take personally the responsibility to show up for the future. It means when Bernie says not me, us, what he's saying is it's not about me, it's about you. And for each of us who are running, we know, I can use a microphone, I know what to say, right? I know policy. But the only way I'm in a position to reframe the debate, to challenge the speaker, to pull her left, to get her to show up on impeachment, to get her to change positions on the Yemen War Powers Resolution, that wasn't the power of my words, that was the power of your support, forcing her to show up for work. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful, humbled really, to see so many people out here across the country supporting us. And none of you can vote for me, but I'm so grateful that you're going to still be supporting us.
Running New York 15.
I love that. Your guy said you can all donate. That's important.
And everybody can. I want a couple of thematic things I want to share here. First, I'm really eager for everybody who's sitting at a table before we leave to meet everybody else sitting at your table. That would mean a lot to me because it's not about just us on the microphone. Right? Not me, us. It's about you connecting with each other and finding ways to support the valuable and important organizing projects that each of you are doing in your community. Let's do it that way. Who here is an organizer in your community working to build a brighter day? Raise it up like you mean it. Raise it up. Look around. This is the room you found yourself in. You are in a room of revolutionaries who are building the brighter future. None of us here are merely observing our body politic. All of us are jumping on the scale with every ounce of energy that we have. That's what not me, us means. The solidarity is the key to the brighter future. If we are to shrug off the yoke of our failed predatory corporate past, it is going to take all of us standing together to make healthcare a human right within the United States, yes?
Yes.
It's going to take all of us together to change our energy policy and our foreign policy to keep fossil fuels in the ground and ensure a viable future for our species, yes?
Yes.
We're going to have to do these things together. It's going to take together to dismantle the racist, predatory system of mass incarceration, industrial slavery that our country It's going to take all of us to unwind mass surveillance and protect dissent, to breathe new life into our democracy. We hear people talk a lot, particularly at sporting events, for instance, about living in the land of the free and the home of the brave. We don't live in a land of the free or the home of the brave. We don't live in a democracy.
Say that.
Right? We live in a corporate-run land of the pervasively monitored, jailed arbitrarily, and killed with impunity and a home of people who represent us, who put their careers in front of their responsibilities, who put their careers before their oaths of office and put their careers before our communities. And that, my friends, is what we who addressed you here this evening and our next president, that's what we aim to change, to make sure that our communities are represented and that human rights are at the center of our public policy instead of resigned to the margins, to put people before profit, to put communities before corporations, and to put your kids and your grandkids before the interests of fossil fuel extraction companies. Is anybody here? We have a range of different options with respect to a great many things. In California, at the moment, our state's being threatened by catastrophic wildfires, caused to a large extent by the misallocation of resources by a utility, a private utility, allowed a monopoly through public regulation but denied public control. There are a whole set of industries that prey on the public to ensure their profit. Health insurance companies are one of them, as an example. Pharmaceutical companies are another. Private utilities are another. My favorite is weapons manufacturers. Why, or fossil fuel extraction companies, why do we incentivize, by making available to the market, behavior that kills people? There's not a single good reason for that. We literally allow capital to rule over people. That's what capitalism means. Capital is a fiction, y'all. We invented it to make exchanges. Why are we slaves to it? Capital should serve people, not the other way around. And all of us here this evening are offering vehicles to make sure that the future is different from the past, to make sure that the future is one you can feel excited about and hopeful for. There are incredible threats to any number of our, not just our rights, I hope everybody makes it home safe despite the NYPD being on the streets, right? Who is the threat to public safety in most cities? It is the police department who is the threat to public safety. I heard a presidential candidate claim in the last couple hours, the last couple days, it might have been yesterday, that our country supposedly needs ICE. What? What our country needs is security and a welcoming, easy pathway to citizenship without abusing the rights of Americans in the service of militarizing our border. What we need are representatives who respect our rights and understand what the empire looks like from the boot. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about kind of my story and how I got here, right? So, I was born in England, 74. My family moved around the world twice to be free. We first fled Pakistan, fleeing religious discrimination toward the sect of Islam to which I belong, which is reviled as heretical in many Muslim countries. We're sort of like the Unitarian Universalists of Islam. It's a not unfair comparison. I'd be happy to unpack the analogy. So I grew up in rural Missouri, random part of the country. There were 300 people in the town I grew up in until I was 10 years old. And I had a really idyllic experience. Everyone to me was uncle and aunt. And it was at least to the extent we were there as a Brown family, it was multiracial. It was 300 people named the Pullmans and the Waymeyers and then the Buttars. And it was idyllic. I saw in that small community what community looks like. A set of principles around people caring for each other. And it's exactly the principle, the value that we see so strikingly absent in our national body politic, which is so, as we've illustrated, in healthcare, in climate, in our military and foreign policy, so built on predation. We moved to the suburbs of St. Louis when I was 10 years old. When I was 16, I graduated from high school right at the same time that our family was losing our house to foreclosure. And I started college at the University of Chicago. Within a year, I was on the street because even after maxing out all the student aid available to me, I wasn't able to pay for college. And I was down and out. It took me about 3 years to get on my feet. While I was formerly unhoused, I remained very grateful to the friends who helped shelter me from the worst of that experience. And I understand what the empire is like from the boot. I got my college degree at night school while working during the day for the better part of a decade, and the only way I had a chance to go to Stanford for law school was writing a thesis about radical wealth redistribution in the context of a market economy that then had me, that was my ticket to the West Coast. I had a chance to teach there before I graduated, and in the last 20 years, helping initiate the first set of legal challenges to vindicate the right of consenting adults to marry a partner of their choice here in this state, in New York, of which I'm very proud. And I do want to just give a shout out to my former client, Jason West. Does anybody remember the former mayor of New Paltz, New York, Jason West? Give it up for Jason. You know, from that work to the work I've been doing, fighting government agencies and intelligence agencies and police departments from coast to coast. Just a shout out to Providence, Rhode Island, which has the nation's strongest local civil rights law. I wrote substantial portions of it when I was running the Bill of Rights Defense Committee years ago. Long before we had a chance in San Francisco to establish the first municipal ban on face surveillance technology in the hands of municipal agencies, including police departments. The work that we've done to vindicate the right to trial in the indefinite detention regime that both Republican and Democratic presidents have maintained. We know here that the narrative of partisan gridlock in Washington that we're fed, the idea that we can't get anything done because our country can't agree, we know that that is false because bipartisan majorities favor your right to get to a doctor without having to fear bankruptcy. Bipartisan majorities favor your kids and grandchildren having a right to a viable future without being plagued by resource wars and insufficiency. Bipartisan majorities put people before profit. And I'll put it to you this way. Medicare for all, we've been talking a lot about healthcare this evening, and the Green New Deal is also, I think, a very integral part of the vision for the future that we all share. The idea that people should be able to get medicine without having to risk homelessness, that's not just an issue that we can agree on in Queens. It's not just an issue that we can agree on in San Francisco. People in Indiana and Alabama have parents who get old and get sick. A lot of them have kids who need medicine. A lot of them themselves get sick. These are human rights issues, and if we put human rights at the center of our agenda, there is no party, there is no corporation, there is no politician that can stop us, y'all. The future is ours to be reclaimed. I am so happy to be part of the movement with you to reclaim our future, to defend it from the past. And here's whatever, everybody has, dark days when you wonder what the future might look like. And I know that a lot of people dedicated to our next president. I'll say, as a Muslim American, I am very excited about supporting our first Jewish president because transcend faith. They transcend race. They transcend where you came from, right? These are the things that make us people. And half the reason I'm running for office is to help pave the road for Bernie Sanders' legislative agenda in the House after we put him in the White House. Are you with me? I'll do another show of hands here. Who here has lifted a finger or written a check to Bernie Sanders? I want to see that. Yeah, work. That's what I'm talking about. That's why we're going to win. That's why we're going to win the White House. It's why we're going to change Congress. It's why we are going to end the bipartisan consensus on predatory corporate rule. And it's why, my friends, I'm looking very forward to a future where we're all together putting human rights first. Thanks for coming in.
So much. Shahid Buttar. Let's get this man elected. Let's get everybody who spoke here tonight elected. Not me, us. Say it. Not me, us. Come on, y'all. Not me, us.
Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us.
Not me, us. Shahid, thank you. Come up, guys. There's an additional piece of. There's some ambiguity, but there's some. The Queen's Choir is here.
This is not the Queen's Choir. We're all awful singers. And I know there's some young people here who like the Dead Prez, some people like the Rage, Against the Machines. The Zoomers can hit us up on TikTok about what the new Solidarity song is. But they want us to sing, although we're awful, the original song. Y'all know Solidarity Forever? You want to sing this song?
Everyone join in.
Let's do it. Come on.
I'm hosting, but I'll sing too.
Just the chorus. Solidarity forever.
make sure you meet some new people tonight. Make sure we get Lauren into office. Make sure we get Isaiah into office. Make sure we get Russ into office. Make sure we get Lindsay into office. Thanks again for being out here, y'all. It means so much to see you all.
By the way, I'm Jewish and I support. Oh, by the way, folks, if you are digging deep in your pocket and you do have $3, $4, $5, or please do make sure that you donate 3, 4, 5, 10, 27 to our friends.
So that was Shahid Buttar, the congressional candidate facing Nancy Pelosi, and a lot of other congressional candidates running up against corporate Democrats. And I think why this event was important is obviously you don't see every day on the corporate media coverage of these kinds of candidates. You definitely don't see on the corporate media just normal working people appearing. You don't see these interconnected organizers and groups and energy coming together. That's why corporate media exists, to not show you that and to basically keep people asleep. So we're glad that we could show you the energy. Remember, the race in the primary in San Francisco, I believe, is February or March. I'll get that to confirm tomorrow, but I think it's in March. So not that much time until the primary where Shahid would have to finish in the top two. Would have to finish in the top two to move on to the general. So there's not that much time, but he is building a campaign. Obviously, coming over to New York. I spoke with him earlier. We'll post that for you, where he's done interviews and meetings in New York City as well as Washington, D.C. But as we saw with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, you really, I mean, it's not easy to beat someone like Nancy Pelosi, but remember, most of these corporate Democrats are kind of asleep, and they're arrogant enough to think they can't be defeated. And with arrogance comes laziness. So Shahid is definitely out hustling Speaker Pelosi, who probably doesn't think she has a real challenge because she's basically been coasting unchallenged for 30 years in San Francisco. So happy to cover this. We've been posting in the Super Chat. This is a Super Chat. If you want to leave something before we end. We could do a lot more of this coverage, but we got to grow our membership. I think we're at 729 paid members. We got to get that up. The goal is 1,000 by the end of this year. So if you've been on the fence, if you're white, I know a lot of you watching are already Status Quo members, but if you've been on the fence, we hope you'll sign up today. $5 to $10 a month makes a huge difference. We got to pay for equipment. We got to pay for our camera person, Jen, myself, Colin, and others. So and we got to pay for the travel. It is expensive. Luckily, this was in our backyard, but the continued travel, it's not cheap. And growing our paid membership is how we'll be able, remember, candidates can do a lot, but they also need to have their message broadcasted. Not that we're here, we're not like calling for you to donate, that's not my role, but candidates like Shahid can't get their message out if it's not broadcasted. It's not going to be broadcasted in most places. So we hope as we grow our membership, we'll be able to go out across the country, cover from candidates like Shahid to Lauren, who we've interviewed, and other local candidates from the East Coast, West Coast, and everything in between. But it costs money, so we hope you'll consider signing up. Obviously, we know you're spreading your money around, donating to candidates, and obviously your monthly budget for your own lives. Hopefully you got $5 to $10. Sign up now, statusquo.com/join. Also, sign up for our email list, statusquo.com, join our email list. And we just launched on Twitch. So you can follow us there, twitch.tv/statusquo. That's twitch.tv/statusquo. status coup. And we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Oh.
I want to say something really quick. I know cameramen don't normally do this, but there's going to be some interesting content that members only might only get to see today. What do you think, Jordan? What do you think about that?
Yes. We will have content just for the members. So sign up, statusquo.com/join, so you can get that members-only content, which is on the site now for members, statusquo.com/join. Jen, any parting words? No? All right. See you later. Bye-bye.